Hello, and thanks for watching. This is the first in a series of videos on psychedelic harm reduction. This is part one, how to avoid bad trips, also known as bummers. The first thing under setting is going to be like where do you take the psychedelic drug? Well, let's put it first. A bad place would be your parents' house when they're home. That's a really bad place. Okay, but there's other places that aren't that good either. Like anywhere that's too public, where you could have a sort of you could be acting weird and you'll draw attention to yourself. And even when you're not acting weird, you'll think you're acting weird, and it'll just be like a whole cycle of issues. So I probably wouldn't take it anywhere too public. I wouldn't take it in my parents' house. If I was a kid, I wouldn't take it in my parents' house. If you're in university, the dorms probably aren't that good a place either. But let's look at some good places where you could take it. If you have a house to yourself, that's a good place. If you go camping and it's a reasonably safe outdoor place where you have responsible people watching out for you. Camping, at the beach or at a festival. These are pretty good places to trip out. So when it comes to the set, we'll first talk about your mindset. Don't take it when you're depressed, or your girlfriend just left you, or your mom just died, or you just lost your job. When you're in like a shitty mind state, you don't want to take psychedelics. It's not going to make you happier. It's not, like some other drugs may make you happy, but psychedelics aren't, they don't work that way. You should take it when you're already happy. I definitely would not take a drug like that when I was at a point in my life where I was down about a whole bunch of things. If you're going to start thinking about it during the trip, it'll just ruin your trip. So also under setting are the people you take it with. That can really have a big effect on your trip. I usually take it just alone by myself because I'm a veteran and I'm okay with that. But for your first few trips anyway, you should take it with trusted friends. The people I used to take it with when I was a kid were, I don't know how to put it nicely, but we would mess with each other and try and screw each other up, and it's not really healthy for psychedelics to do stuff like that. We were kind of like young punks who didn't know any better, but you should definitely take it with people that that you trust, that if the person you're tripping with, and all of a sudden you start having all these negative fears and paranoia about them. If it's someone you trust, it's a little bit easier to get over that. If it's a total stranger, you could be thinking all sorts of crazy stuff about them. I would take it either with friends, or if you're sure you're going to be okay, you could take it alone. But the first few times, I would not take it alone. Yeah, a general rule of thumb in the setting category is avoid authority figures. So that's like your parents. That's like the dorm, the dawn or whatever they call them in the dormitories. Avoid them. Avoid the police. And I would try and avoid my boss. I wouldn't want to run into my boss while I was tripping on acid. Or they wouldn't. It's just not a good experience. Yeah, just avoid all sort of authority figures. So another one under the set category is listening to music. If you're gonna start having a bad trip, if you feel it coming on, you start feeling all paranoid and stuff, throw on some really nostalgic music that makes you happy. I would avoid dark music, or even music that you're not too familiar with. Go for the nostalgic stuff from your youth. Maybe you are a youth now. Stuff from that reminds you of your childhood even. These things actually help stop a bad trip, believe it or not. Also, I discovered many years ago, while one of my friends was having a bummer, that if you start to sing, it actually helps stop the bad trip as well. I don't know why, I don't know what the mechanism is behind it. I have no idea why it works, but once you start singing, all of a sudden you start feeling better. It's amazing. It's weird. I don't even know how to explain it. Also, music that I never thought would be great for an acid trip is Bob Marley's Legend, like the greatest hits of Bob Marley. That is just a fantastic album to listen to when you're tripping. Maybe you don't like the Grateful Dead or Pink Floyd or any of the other stereotypical acid bands, but Bob Marley, absolutely fantastic music when you're tripping. So another thing that's important in the setting category is you take it in like a clean place. Like if your apartment or house is a dump, it's not a nice place to trip. You don't want to see dirt and dust and everything all over the place, or like you don't have to wash a dish every time you need a glass and that sort of thing. It's not a nice way to trip, to be honest, tripping in a dirty environment. So despite like all your best intentions and all your preparations and doing everything right, you could still have a bad trip. And I guess your choices are, at that point, you can try and change it. You can just like go with it and see where it takes you, or you can abort it with Valium or benzodiazepine class drugs. I've never aborted a trip myself, but I've had some really bad trips back when I was much younger, and some people say like you gain something from a bad trip or you learn something, but fuck, I didn't learn anything, man, and it sucked. I think if you are really having a hard time with it and it's not fun, then and you have benzos, that you should take them and just abort. Sometimes some of those trips are bad and it's impossible to turn them around, and that sucks, but I don't know. You'll probably have that problem more when you're younger. If you take it when you're like in your 30s or 40s, you'll probably have a better time. It's a combination of everything. Like, when I had bad trips, I was in like a bad place, and I was like, a teenager with teenage problems, and living with your parents, and nothing good is going to happen in that situation. If you take it when you're in a better place in life, that's when you'll probably have those amazing, awesome experiences. And the awesome experiences are awesome, and in my opinion, it's worth the risk. You can never totally eliminate the risk of a bad trip, but you can mitigate it, and you can make it a little bit lower. And if you have benzos, and you really don't have anything to worry about anyway. So one piece of advice I have, if you're going to trip, is just let it go. Just let the experience flow. Don't come up with like a bunch of plans of the things you want to do on the trip, because half the time you're not going to follow that plan, and you'll be lucky to scratch one of those things off the list that you thought you were going to do. I personally like to watch movies, but if the movie watching experience isn't doing it for me, then I'll go for a walk, or a walk or a bike ride or something like that. Like I wouldn't have everything too regimented, or just like let it flow. Whatever happens. Like you can never really predict what kind of mood you're going to be in. Some nights I just want to go out and look at the night sky and look for UFOs. Other nights I'm like, I want to watch like a bunch of psychedelic movies. And hey, I'll put a link to my psychedelic movies list movie that I made a few months ago in this in the comments here. Also, make sure just to prepare for unknown variables. Like if there's like a chance that your parents are going to come home early while you're tripping on acid, then they will come home early. I remember one day I had my whole day all planned out. I was all ready for what I was going to do that day. Took the acid, and then my landlord knocked at the door and said, "Oh, we've got emergency pipes leaking. We need into your apartment." And I was just like, okay. So I grabbed my MP3 player, some weed, and my backpack, and headed over to the park for a couple hours. You have to be prepared to alter your plans. You have to be prepared for the unknown. God only knows what the universe is going to throw at you when you're tripping balls. Also, make sure that you have like the correct amount of time set aside. Like if your LSD trip lasts 8, 9, 10 hours, you have to remember that you're going to be tired as hell the next day as well. So I usually don't do it if I have to work the next day. I usually like to have at least 2 days off in a row. Otherwise, I just hold on to it, because it does take up a lot of time, especially LSD. Mushrooms, not as much. Yeah, I can't tell you how many times I've taken it at like 11 o'clock at night without, realizing that, it's still going to be going at 8 o'clock the next morning. And then you probably won't be able to sleep for a period after the trip is over, the sort of afterglow period. So you're looking at like not sleeping till like the afternoon of the next day probably. So I personally don't take it that late because I'm not as young as probably most of you guys, but I usually take it like in the morning, to be honest, me personally. So the last thing I would suggest is be prepared. Okay, like have like your playlist of music is ready to go. You don't want to be searching for that type of stuff because it's actually really hard to handle electronics when you're hallucinating, and it's just and things tend to go screwy to electronic devices. So I would just have like the music and stuff like that. One time I took acid and I went over to my friend's house, and his dog sat there growling and barking at me the whole time, and I'm like, this is like the most unpleasant experience ever. Like there's some things that, like, you wouldn't expect. You think it would be, oh yeah, that's a great place to trip, but you actually start tripping there and you're like, this is a bad idea. Alright, so I finished making the video, and then I decided I better go online and see if there's anything I forgot. And yeah, there's a few things I forgot, things that I'm used to because I've been doing psychedelics for a long time, but that you probably you wouldn't necessarily know off the top of your head. So one of them is your phone. Turn off your phone. My God, I can't tell you enough how much you need to turn off your phone. Just nothing good is going to come from having your phone on. Like, if you want to hook up with some chick or something, set it up before you take acid, not after you, or shrooms or whatever you're taking. Don't have your phone on, because what if really bad information comes in on your phone as you're tripping balls? Like, do you want to find out that somebody died when you're on acid? No, you don't want to find that out. So turn off your phone and check the messages tomorrow. You're not even joking. Next, yeah, make sure to eat before you take the substance, and have like a little snack or whatever. For if it's LSD and it's going to last for 12 hours, you're going to be hungry somewhere during that trip. So you don't really want to be like trying to cook stuff, or even ordering food is it's a real hassle when you're tripping. I don't really like going out and picking up food. I don't like making it. So if you just have food ready that you can eat while you're tripping, that's the best plan. Also, it's important to remain hydrated. Like, it's not as much like, with MDMA you have to drink water, otherwise, you'll die. But with, like, say, LSD, you could just, you could forget. You could be tripping for a couple of hours and totally forget when the last time you had something to drink was. Just drink lots of water when you're on it, and you'll have less, like, cramps and muscle aches and headache, and you'll feel better after the trip is over, and it's good for you. Just keep drinking water during your trips. So another thing I forgot to add to the video, was don't mix your drugs. Like, if you're taking acid, don't get drunk, or don't take a bunch of pills, or don't do speed or like coke or anything. Like, really, if you're going to do acid, just take acid. I personally like to smoke a little bit of marijuana when I'm on it, but that can make things a lot like more, I don't know, like paranoia filled trips, sort of, in the inexperienced user. I smoke pot all during the trip, but you might not want to. You might want to try it without the pot, because it's a little bit of it's a little scary when you're tripping balls, and then you get some real paranoia inducing marijuana, and it just makes things much freakier. So I personally don't mix. Like, alcohol just ruins it. If you're gonna get drunk, don't take your shrooms when you're drunk. That's a waste of it. It ruins it. Like, you're not gonna get the full effect. It's gonna be blunted by this alcohol, which really doesn't go with any psychedelic. Like, at the end of it, if you're tripping and you want to maybe fall asleep, and it's been 15 hours since you took it and it's time to go to sleep, you might want to have a couple shots then. That's not a bad idea, but I would not seriously drink and take psychedelics at the same time. It's senseless, it's a waste, and it's probably dangerous too. Alright, so to sum up, to finish this video, I'm going to just talk a little bit about dosage. It's kind of like a loaded topic, because I see a lot of people online claiming that their blotters are 200 micrograms, and they've done 2 of them, so they know what 400 micrograms is. Like, no, your doses aren't 200 mics. Sorry, you're wrong. So I'm just going to say a general sort of thing is just keep it low, like, half a hit or 1 hit. Like, maybe like 2 grams, 2.5 of mushrooms. By the time you start getting up to 3.5 grams of mushrooms, that's actually a pretty strong dose. I personally would suggest starting lower and work your way up. If you have a couple of good trips on a lower dose, then up it a bit. But don't just start with a massive dose, because if things go bad and you do have a bad trip, it's going to be way worse on a big dose than it would be on a small dose. A bad trip on a small dose is a little weird and uncomfortable, but a bad trip on a big dose is kind of terrifying, to be honest with you. I've done it and I wouldn't recommend it. But that is, I guess, the video. Happy trips, and hopefully things go well. Get that set and setting all prepared and you should be okay. Subscribe for more videos. I'm probably going to make one about like what all the different dose levels are like on a LSD, like all the different microgram levels. That'll probably be the next psychedelic video. And thanks for watching.